Okay, peace and positivity, everyone. It's Takesha T, Miss Love Light Energy, your ministress of cannabis, and I'm the founder of Afro Canna Holistic. And welcome to another session of Black Women Who Blaze, a platform created to provide visibility for Black women who consume cannabis to share their stories of how it helps them maintain their wellness. Also for cannabis professionals and that experience and cannabis entrepreneurs who are paving the way for more women like us to enter the space. And I'm excited today about our conversation with my special guest because she is the first local feature in Connecticut. And our paths crossed a few years ago at a local cannabis event. And with divine timing and alignment, we have connected. So Ms. Kevnesha, I hope I'm saying it correctly.
Yes.
Okay, Kevnesha Boyd is an amazing Black woman who blazes, an entrepreneur as well. She is the founder and clinical director of Quality Counseling here in Connecticut, providing healing for the culture. I love that. I love that. And certified cannabis consultant and a 2022 100 Women of Color honoree. She is here to share her journey with cannabis and how she is making an impact, advocating for cannabis as a tool for mental wellness in our community. Congratulations, Kevnesha, and thank you for being present today.
Oh, thank you, Takesha. I really appreciate it. It's an honor. It's an honor to be here to share my story, to share the information, and to share space. So I'm looking forward to this conversation for sure.
Yes, thank you. So before we get into your cannabis journey, can you please share more about who you are and your professional background?
Absolutely. So I'm born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. Yeah, I am a licensed mental health therapist. I currently specialize in PTSD and racial trauma, really helping Black community get access, right, to culturally responsive mental health care, because I think that that is critically important. In addition to destigmatizing the use of cannabis for mental health, and with that comes a layer of providing some education for the actual therapeutic benefits to mental health. So we are a group mental health practice of Black therapists, and we accept insurance too. And it's important. If I'm going to do this work, it has to be for my community. It has to be for my people, because I know that there are not a lot of Black mental health therapists, and it is essential that I do the work for my people, because I know what it's like. And the burden of life is heavy. So I want to be able to create space.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I'm amazed at your background and your story. Really, when I was going through your bio on your website, I was like, oh my, you're born and raised, and then you, of course, attended school. So, in Connecticut, your bachelor's and your master's. I live right near UNH. So, I mean, and the fact that you focus on our mental health is really ideal, because it's hard for us. At one point I was looking for a therapist, still am and it was hard for me to locate a Black therapist, so a counselor. And so I'm glad that we were able to connect. And a few years ago when we did, and you gave me your card and I lost it, I was just so bummed, because I didn't have any idea of how to find you,
Yeah.
because then I'm not that great with names, so then I couldn't remember your name. So, but my first question is, are you a medicinal cannabis patient in Connecticut?
Yes, I am. I'm a cannabis consumer, patient, advocate, educator, trainer, all of the things. I check all of the boxes. I'm a cannabis enthusiast. Yeah, cannabis, everything, all of it.
Great. And how has consuming cannabis shifted your wellness?
Ooh, so I am diagnosed with PTSD, and cannabis keeps me balanced. It keeps me balanced. So my trauma story goes back, right? Back to childhood trauma in terms of I grew up in a cannabis friendly home, right? But society wasn't necessarily friendly to it. So it wasn't that I didn't know that cannabis could be helpful. It was again balancing having a job, drug testing, and what that all was like. And I was working for Department of Corrections for about 6 years, and it was the most toxic work environment ever.
Mm.
I was not doing well. I was not sleeping. I was jumpy. I was irritable. It was affecting the way I was moving through life. So it's like, here I have this dream job of a place where I think I'm supposed to be,
Mm.
right? And as a mental health therapist, I'm struggling with my own mental health. So in a space where like I'm supposed to be of service, I'm not. I'm not of service at all because I'm having a really difficult time managing my emotions and my body, my immune system. I was sick with some kind of virus almost like every 3 months because
Wow.
there's no air in the prison. There's no windows
Right.
in the
Yes.
prison.
Yes.
So yeah, it really took a toll on my mental health, on my physical health, compounded, right, with the complex childhood trauma. So I remember this day like it was yesterday, but I was already in therapy and I needed to get FMLA because I was calling out a lot from work. And so I remember asking my therapist, like, oh, what's my mental health diagnosis? Overly confident, thinking like, oh, it's probably anxiety, adjustment disorder, something light.
Right.
She's like, yeah, no, PTSD. And it was like, oh, and literally the first thing I thought of, well, now I can get a medical marijuana card. Like that was that.
Right.
And so, yeah, I've been a medical patient since about 2017. Um, and yeah, it's provided me peace. It's provided me clarity. It's provided me community too. It's provided me community because I think Western medicine would have likely led me towards some kind of psychiatric medication that would have had detrimental effects. So the fact that I get to use a plant that I'm familiar with, that I was already using anyway,
Right.
um, is great, right? Because I always say the dispensary is a top tier experience, and I want Black people to experience that.
Thank you.
And so it certainly has changed my life. It certainly has. And, you know, the latter part is I'm looking to create some wealth with it as well, but I'm sure we'll get to that. So,
Right.
go ahead.
Right. 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 So, what is your favorite delivery method? How do you prefer to consume it?
Yes, I prefer to inhale it because I like instant gratification. I want it now.
Right.
In addition to that, right, like the onset of therapeutic effects is sooner. So
Yeah.
there's that. It's also cheaper, excuse me, to get the flower, and it's easier to dose. So my favorite is inhaling, but as I, you know, really want to honor my physical health, I do acknowledge that it comes with some physical side effects that I don't need in terms of some respiratory, lung coughing types of symptoms. So I balance the inhaling with ingestion through some edibles, but mostly inhale. If I can smoke it, I'll smoke it.
No, that's right. Right. Okay. So, what made you decide to become a cannabis consultant after becoming a medicinal patient, and what was that process like?
Yeah. So what made me want to become a consultant is in my experience as a patient, I realized there's a big gap with education. Because I think the normal level of education of cannabis and the benefits is pretty surface level. Like
Right.
literally the benefits of cannabis go deep, deep, deep. So while I was obtaining my certification and going to the pharmacy, there wasn't lots of conversation about here's the terpene or the strain that you should use, and here's the different forms of consumption, and here are the benefits, and here are the side effects. And yeah, it was a gap. So I'm like, so me at a professional level, if I'm experiencing this gap with this deficit of information, then most certainly the general public is,
Right.
right? Because it can be intimidating walking into a pharmacy, let alone knowing that you can ask the pharmacist or the bud tender for some information.
Right.
And I wanted my people to have the information because I think a lot of people are overusing or misusing because of
Yeah.
the lack of information.
Yes.
Uh, Getting certified, actually, a colleague of mine was certified. We were on a panel together. So he mentioned being certified. So I felt like I can use a little razzle dazzle. Use a little razzle dazzle to make it official, right? Make it
Yeah.
official, because I do think people care about titles, and it has a layer of authenticity and yeah, authority too.
Right.
But it wasn't hard. I took a test. Took a test. I have to take it
Okay.
every year.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, because, the reason why I asked, because you have other Black women who may be interested in going that route, or they really don't know where to start with education or learning more about the health benefits of the plant, the intricacies of cannabis, as a health and healing modality. And then, there are a lot of, now I'm starting to see a lot of pop up places where you can, get your certification and stuff like that. And so, we want to be able to direct them to a trusted source. I went to the Cannabis Coaching Institute to get my cannabis health coach certification, but I also became a certified advocate through Normal and Green Flower,
Mm,
before I became a coach. So definitely, there's different places, and we just want them to know that there's a variety of places and spaces you can go and become certified if that's your interest. And
absolutely.
yeah,
I can look it up. I'll look it up where it's
okay,
from, but I can't remember the top of my head.
right, right, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so in your experience, I wanted to
Mhm.
get into what you do, professionally. In your experience, what are the most prevalent mental health issues affecting women of color today?
PTSD. Black women are leading in PTSD. So Black people specifically have the highest rates of PTSD. And if we're looking at gender differences, Black women are
Mm,
leading, and in addition, are more likely to be cannabis users too. So it really is an interesting intersection.
yeah,
And I do think Black women are disproportionately affected by other medical conditions that qualify. Um,
yes,
One of them that's not up there are fibroids. So I'm recently gaining a deeper understanding of how significantly debilitating fibroids are for Black women, and how common, and the pain. And so actually, I find that most of my clients are using cannabis for the pain from the fibroids.
mm,
An interesting consumption way is some clients use oil, or what else? You mostly oil, and they'll put it in a tampon, and then they'll insert it, and then that'll be helpful. But for my specialty as a mental health provider, it is PTSD. I have never, in my over 15 years of working in this field, met a Black person who has not been at least experienced one traumatic event.
right,
And that's being light, right? And I think some of the gap is providers not knowing that trauma looks different for Black people, right? Like, it's not the standard PTSD that's in the DSM, which is what medical providers use to
right,
diagnose PTSD, is much different, and it looks different. So if
yeah,
you're not in it to know what it looks like and what it sounds like, you're definitely missing it. You're diagnosing it as anxiety or depression or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. It gets classified as many, many other things.
right, right, right. And I agree that there needs to be a revisit. You can't just go from something that was created 100 years ago and address it, and apply it to people in modern times. Like, it has to be modernized as
Mhm.
well. You
And
know,
that wasn't the intention, right? Like, when they developed PTSD, let's be real, it really was targeted for white veterans.
right, right,
Because if the research led that actually Black people are leading in PTSD, I'd wonder if that would impact PTSD being a qualifying condition, right? Because we know America only has empathy for white people.
mm,
And because vets were really like the breakout of what PTSD is, I think that's how it falls in the category. But
right.
yeah,
Right, right. I agree. I agree. And especially when you said Black women, dealing with PTSD, it's just a whole host of, other things that contribute to it. Whether it's, like
yeah.
you said, childhood trauma, obviously generational. I saw you shared
Mm,
Dr. DeBroy's post-traumatic slave syndrome. um,
Mm-hmm.
work, and just deep diving into all the things that come from being that legacy, that
Yep.
generational experience, and it just continues on, and it has weaved through the generations. So it is very complex, and that's why, yeah, I agree, we all qualify for a medicinal license,
Mm-hmm.
hands down. We shouldn't be paying for it at all, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it should be covered by insurance companies that people are paying for. So that's where I advocate for, the medicinal part of it. Definitely, having insurance companies cover the cost. Now, I was told, and that it is being covered in New York by workers' comp, the medical cannabis. So there's some places that are moving and shifting things. So, but let's get it here in Connecticut. I don't want to have to move back home just to.
Yeah, because I agree with you. It's long overdue, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think the affordability piece is also a big barrier, right? Because we're talking about at minimum probably about $250 a year, right? So
Mhm.
that's $150 for the eval and $100 for the state fee. So when we're talking about somebody with low income or a single mom with kids, if you got to think, well, is it groceries or is it the 250? So a part of some of the education that I provide is offering the opportunity for some financial sponsorship for a card, and it does make a big difference. It
Yeah.
makes a big difference for people to be able to say, okay, yes, I can pay for the medicine, right? But I may not have the funds for this $250 annual fee. And I mean, let's be real, like there are way more harmful medications being covered
Yes.
the pharmacies.
Yeah.
And I think it's coming. I think it's
Yeah.
coming. Like Big Pharma's already got his hand in. They're figuring out how
Hate
to
to
dose
see it.
it, how to cut it up, chop it up, do it all types of stuff.
Yeah. Here
So
we go.
I think it'll
Right.
be coming.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. Here we go. Just let us have the plant. That's
Hmm.
it. We don't need y'all to start dibbling and dabbling. Which is
They couldn't wait.
in it,
Couldn't
but
wait.
right. Right. So, why is it important for Black women to have access to Black mental health professionals that advocate for accessibility of medicinal cannabis? I think you kind of covered it because of all the things you need. But, the fact that you said that you also help, with sponsorship
Hmm.
for your patients. So, because, that's something that you may not get with another ethnicity, as far as a therapist. So why do you think that it's important for us to have Black therapists?
Ooh, it's important because first off, I think America has this language of being culturally competent, which I think is wrong. Like you can't be competent in the knowledge of a culture,
Right.
right? Like I'm Black and I don't know everything about being Black.
Hmm.
So the expectation to be competent, I think, is a disservice, and I really want to shift towards just being responsive, and we speak a language, right? Like we have a culture. There's certain things. There's one thing me and one of my girlfriends were talking about as like we see the memes and reels. I said, if social media is teaching me anything, is that we all were living in the same house. Like we just all were living in the same house. I'm like, so that wasn't just going on at my house.
Right.
And like
Right.
if you don't have somebody who's in alignment or that knows, it can present as a mental health symptom, which then can cause harm to the client, right? Because unfortunately, when a Black person has a therapist that's not Black, they're being forced to be now like the educator and the client. So not only do I have to vent and process and receive the treatment and do the work, but I have to educate you on why we do things that we do and like
Yes.
why I'm not talking back at Thanksgiving dinner or like just certain things. It's like no, why I'm not putting my pocketbook on the floor, like
Right. 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 Right.
just things. Yeah.
Right. Right. So I agree. I thought that was important. I did have a counselor that was not Black, and that was the difficulty in treatment because, of course, yes, I'm dealing with PTSD from multiple things, but as a
Hmm.
mom as well, and my anxieties about my son being 19 and being what being Black in
Mhm.
America, she really could not speak to why I was dealing with anxiety and having those type
Right.
of things. So, and she gave, of course, she gave me some tools to work, some things I could do when the feelings and stuff like that came up, but there was really no getting to the root of it. Like I need
Yeah.
the root, I need to get to the root and pluck it. You understand?
Mhm.
Like that that's where I'm at. I don't mind coping tools, but I want to get to the root so I can go ahead and release it and move forward. And so,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I think it makes sense
Yeah.
for us to have
It
access to
does.
like therapists. Um, my next question is, in your practice, have you seen improvement in the mental wellness of your patients that consume cannabis?
Absolutely. And the research is clear. The research is very clear. Cannabis is not only the safest medicine for PTSD, but it really should also be medical providers' first choice.
Mm,
Right? It should be the first choice because it's not toxic, it's not lethal, and it's extremely beneficial. Yeah, I find that my clients mostly are able to sleep. They're able to sleep. And so when we think about PTSD, I think the general um belief is that it's a mental health condition, and it's yes, but it's really more of a physiological condition, which really means the impact of the mind and the body, right?
yeah,
Because trauma really impacts the body in a way that no other condition does. So when we talk about muscle tension, we talk about soreness, tightness, flexibility, like they're able to have those experiences. And the research is, excuse me, also clear that THC is extremely beneficial for complex trauma, right? Like when we talk about that mind body disconnect or that
yeah,
numbing, that freezing that
yeah,
comes with trauma,
yeah,
right? It creates a hyper aware sensitivity that no other medicine provides. So
yeah,
they do extremely well,
yeah,
right? And I don't want to, I hope I'm not coming across as if like cannabis is a cure, because it's not, right?
right,
Like it's a treatment. It's a
right.
treatment. So it provides ease, it provides relaxation. And we know that when you have a poor quality of sleep, your day is trash. You can't
Right.
function. You
That's
can't
right.
function. You don't have the nutrients, you don't have the brain chemicals. Your body's just not able to function. So that's the foundation.
Yes, yes. And I agree that, PTSD shows up in the body. Of course, and oftentimes, certain things will trigger a traumatic event. I was in a very traumatic car accident, and now I'm still dealing with, the anxiety of being in an automobile, you know, and I can feel myself tense up. I
Yep.
can feel my heart race. I can feel my gut tighten, my jaw clench.
Hmm.
Like it's serious. So I agree that it's not just a mental health. It does affect you physically. So does your practice provide guidance with dosing, delivery methods, or the variety of cannabis that helps specific mental health conditions?
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things is to provide the cannabis psychoeducation. And again, I find that people really don't know a lot about it. And so that's exciting to be able to empower them, right? And then that helps to destigmatize things. I forgot the question. What was the question?
Right, right. Right. No, it was, if you guys provide, like dosing guidance and things like that for specific mental health conditions. So like what variety to pick up, how, like you said, how to dose, how many puffs, whatever. And delivery methods, maybe like you said, maybe smoking or inhaling may not work for you, may not be something they can do, but hey, you can take a capsule, you can take it
Hmm.
sublingually. So that's something that you guys provide.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I remember now. Got it.
It's okay.
Yes. Actually, dosing is one of the more important parts because what I find for people who, have a stigma against cannabis use is that they actually have had a traumatic experience related to cannabis use. So
Mm,
I'll just tell my business. So before I had the education, I remember doing a whole edible, and that's the one and only time that I had side effects. I did start to hallucinate. And I remember just calling my sister because she did edibles before, and she was like, "You just got to sleep it off. Like there's nothing you can do. You just
yeah,
got to sleep it off." On the latter, and now I know that, well, actually there is something you can do rather than
right,
sleep it off. And so I don't want clients to have that negative experience of overdosing, right? Because
yeah,
you overdose, no, you're not going to die, but that's certainly going to deter you from wanting to use it if you're misusing it.
yeah,
And this isn't exclusive to cannabis, right? Like if you overuse any substance, it's going to have some side effects. So
yes,
absolutely. And we know that three different strands have very three um different types of benefits. We know there's what 200 types of terpenes with all different types of benefits. So
mhm, mhm,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And people don't know. They're just like, especially if you get street weed,
mhm,
you don't know. You don't know. Like, oh,
right,
he said it was grown in California. Oh, I'm
right.
sure. I'm sure. Anybody weed grown in
Right,
California.
right, right. Yeah, because nowadays you're asking them, well, what's the name they're giving you? And they, oh, I think it's just a sign of third. But what I love now is the accessibility of testing, apparatuses, which I do have. So, if I, at the time before I became a patient and had access, testing was the concern. So now I'm able to test the level of THC and stuff like that
Mm,
if need be, because that also makes a difference. High THC amounts can bring on, like you said,
yep.
can exacerbate someone's anxiety. So, knowing how to dose is, I agree, 100% necessary. I've had the edible experience, but thank goodness it was with my own. So I knew
Mm,
it was in it. It's just having, like we said, having too much. And, my experience pretty much was, I went to sleep and woke up and was still, and it was just like, oh
hmm.
no, no, and that kind of gave me that almost anxious, like, oh, and then I was a little frustrated, like, when's the high going to be over? Like,
Right.
so I definitely learned how to create, uh, um, micro servings, so micro
Mm,
doses and also micro servings for myself.
yeah.
But so that's great. I mean, it's like you guys are a one-stop shop, really. Come on through,
Hmm.
get the help that you need, and also get guidance in the treatment in consuming cannabis. And you can also get uh, the licensing. You guys
Yeah.
are getting the licensing, so that's perfect. So
Absolutely.
Connecticut has now legalized cannabis for adult use,
Mhm.
okay, for 21 years and older, but there's still a need to advocate for real and quantifiable social equity and restorative justice in the legal market. Specific to restorative justice, what do you believe that looks like in the mental health space? Like, how can that, it looks like you froze, I'm sorry. How can that help?
Mhm.
How can we speak to restorative justice and mental health and wellness for Black people?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of what you said in terms of making the medicine free, right? Like being able to use your insurance, making the ability to get a card free.
Yeah.
So I know we had a short conversation about methadone is free. You don't
Yes.
have to jump through hoops and loops. They just giving that out,
Okay.
giving it out. Whoever want it, come get it.
That's right. That's right.
And in comparison, like, it's like apples to oranges, but like there's so many restrictions on it. And again, the people that need it and that could benefit and that have been harmed from cannabis prohibition, the war on drugs, mass incarceration, we could probably name a bunch of other things,
That's
are being shut out from it
that's right.
and being shut out now from ownership, right? And so it's like, no, no, heck no. Let's make it free. It's medical marijuana. Let's make it free and
Right.
accessible.
Right.
And let's get more mental health conditions, whether that be anxiety, insomnia, bipolar disorder. There's tons of research to support that cannabis really, really is helpful for lots of mental health conditions. We're doing a disservice
Yeah.
by prescribing these SSRIs to people that aren't shown to be helpful and harmful.
Right. Right. I agree. I agree. I think that those are, like you said, quantifiable ways to help bring in some restorative justice, right? Make it free, okay?
Mhm.
That's make it free. That's it. And so, speaking of social equity, now that the licensing is happening in CT, are you looking to get involved in that part of the industry where maybe a retail, maybe manufacturing, maybe growing, or what have you? Have you considered that?
I have not, and I don't think I want a license. I look at my involvement in the cannabis industry more as a service and an advocate. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think I need a license to do what I'm doing in
Right,
terms of the training and the education. I would love to serve on some boards, to be a part of some organizations in terms of, meetings or support groups, or again, just providing the education, but not a specific license. For me, I certainly have plans to invest,
right,
that's for sure.
right. I agree. And do you know of any organizations in Connecticut that are like cannabis based and, Black cannabis, entrepreneurs or people involved, like you said, in educating that, we should share on a platform?
Yeah, there's always Kibra. So Kibra is my one of my first cannabis teachers.
Okay.
Shout out to her. She's certainly a trailblazer in the cannabis industry. So she
Mhm.
owns Canna Health. So I refer most of my clients to Kibra's business, which again is Canna Health. She's got locations scattered around the state. I know there's one
Yes,
in New Haven on Temple Street. There's one in Hartford. So there's a bunch of reasons why I choose Kiba, right? Is one, again, she's a trailblazer and advocate, but she also offers discounts for healthcare essential workers, for veterans, and for low income people to get their cards. And so it's like, yeah, like, she's been
yeah,
about it and is about it through the work by creating space, right?
yeah,
Space and access. So
yeah.
definitely Canna Health. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I know a
Right,
few
right.
others,
Looks
but I
like
don't
we
know the
got some
names of
work
their
to do.
businesses now. I'm thinking about it.
Look, it looks like we got some work to do to create the spaces and
Hmm.
the organizations and get the movement going here in Connecticut. I would love to connect with people locally. I've been able to connect with people internationally and nationally, but the local scene has kind of been a little dry. And so this is why this is like excellent for us to connect in regards to cannabis and women's health, mental health, and what we can do. Our voices being heard here, having some visibility. So, what message do you have for other Black women in relation to cannabis consumption and their mental wellness? Like, what would be your message for them?
Sis, smoke your weed.
Right. And
Smoke your
on that,
weed.
look, on that note, let me.
Yeah, like smoke your weed, right? Because the prohibition is racist. And if we talk about, there's a lot of talk about intergenerational trauma, and I always find that it's imperative that we balance that conversation off with the ancestral healing,
Mhm.
right? And so if we think about the historical trauma of Black people and our existence, is like there had to be healing going on the plantation,
Yeah.
right? Like how else would we have survived such atrocity? And
Hmm.
so I say all of that to say that ancestors was using the herbs, they were using cannabis,
Okay.
they were using cannabis. So when we talk about just being Black and connecting to our roots, it's plant use. It's
Yeah.
using the earth as the medicine that it is. So
Yeah.
to my Black women, release yourself from the shackles and the stigmatization of marijuana. And I don't even like to call it marijuana because of the racist context of marijuana, right?
Right. Right.
But yeah, no, use your plants, smoke your weed, and be balanced.
Right. Yes, I love that. Be balanced because that is what African Holistic is built upon.
Hmm.
Helping you to bring your body back into balance when dealing with a health diagnosis. That's what I do. That's what, it was created for, like you said, ancestral healing. So using those ancestral healing modalities and
Hmm.
tools that we have access to. That's what we had to do, like you said, on the plantation, use what we had access to
Yep.
And that's what I do with Africana Holistic. So I appreciate you sharing that and saying that um, as well. So how do you feel about federal legalization?
It's long overdue.
Yeah,
Long overdue.
yeah,
Long overdue. Like y'all made it federal illegal because of racism. We could talk about George Washington. We could talk about Thomas Jefferson being
right,
some of the
right.
largest cannabis farm owners, right?
Mhm,
Where Black
right,
people were doing some slave labor to keep these farms running so America could once again, white America, build their wealth, right? And that's the wealth that they're still standing on. Um,
right,
so
right.
yeah.
And history has shown that it was hemp farming that really began the wealth building.
Mhm. The
Uh,
first one,
yes,
yes, not
yes,
cotton.
yeah,
People forget about hemp, people forget about rice, and
yes,
people forget about sugar. I'm
yes.
like, and denim too. I'm just
Mm-hmm,
learning something about the denim. So I'm
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, no, there's levels. There's levels to Black labor, right, being tied to white American wealth. It goes deep, deep.
Yes, yes, it does. Yes, it does go deep. And so, thank you again. This was a wonderful build. You shared so much. I appreciate all that you are doing. Congratulations again. And I mean, I'm quite sure you have so many other things going on. I'm following you on social media. So, share everyone with everyone how they can reach you, your social media, and I'll definitely be putting it in the description and stuff like that so they can, your links and stuff, but share how you can be reached.
Yay, thank you. It was a pleasure. I had a good time. I
Yeah.
could have kept going. So
Yeah.
I can be reached on Instagram at Kevnesha, KEVNESHA _LPC. And you can learn more about quality counseling and or schedule a consultation or book an appointment with a dope Black therapist. And so our website is www.qualitycounselingct.com. So it was a pleasure and I hope to hear from somebody.
Yes, yes. And it not just Black women, this is Black Women Who Blaze, but of course, Black men, you
Mm.
can click on the website and schedule you an appointment and get some help.
Absolutely.
That-
Absolutely.
that's-
Space for the Black community. Yes.
yes, yes. I definitely, so do you guys do family or just, do you have like a family, uh, you know, uh, counseling, or just is it individual?
We primarily focus on individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
Mhm.
And thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
until next time, I am Takesha Carter of Africana Holistic. If you or anybody you know is dealing with any type of health diagnosis and want guidance and bringing balance back into your body with cannabis, herbal formulations, whole foods, and mindset, you can find me at www.africanaholistic.com. Please subscribe and like and hit the notification button for the next installment or next session of Black Women Who Blaze. Follow Kevnesha on IG. And if you know any other Black women who blaze and you want to tell your story, leave a comment below and I'll reach out. Thank you.